Hi everyone, my name is Tori, and the story that I did my nonfiction video review on is Witches, the Absolutely True Tale of Disaster in Salem by Rosalyn Schanzer. Now, this book is a National Geographic book. It is also the winner of Society of Illustrators Gold Medal for Best Illustrated Children's Book of 2011, as well as the 2012 Robert F. Sibbert Honor Award as one of the year's 5 most distinguished informational books for children. Now, the author of this and the illustrator is Rosalyn Schanzer, like I said, and she is a writer about history, especially some of history's greatest adventures, such as the Salem witch trials. She herself also goes on many adventures and travels around the world taking pictures and just getting to know everything about it. And she's also a nationally ranked swimmer. So I decided to do this book as I was going through the list, and witches and that sort of thing, like the supernatural world, has always been very interesting to me. And I remember reading about the Salem witch trials in high school, and the whole story of it really interested me, and how such a small thing ended up being so large and being such a huge kind of black mark on society in the beginning, I guess, on the Puritans in this way. And so I just really wanted to read more, and I really loved like the style of it, the black and white style and how the illustrations were drawn. So this book, like it says, is a tale. It goes into the tale of the Salem witch trials. Now, the Salem witch trials started about in 1692, and what happened was two girls, Betty Paris and Abigail, ended up kind of causing a stir. So in the book it says, for as winter sleet and snow heaped higher and higher outside the door, Betty and Abigail began to twitch and choke and contort their bodies into strange abnormal shapes, crouch beneath the future furniture, and speak in words that made no sense. Now, Puritans believe in a natural world with human beings and everything else we can see or touch, but they also have a deep belief in also the invisible world, which is swarming with shadowy apparitions and unearthly phantoms in the air. Now, this world has all the evil things, and is created by God, though, because God created all things, and so they were terrified of this, and they believed, and the Puritan ministers preached that it was God Almighty who controlled these two worlds, and he was fearsome, vengeful, and easily to displease. Because God was all powerful, even the devil and the demons and the witches were under his control. Satan was truly an instrument of the Lord, for it was God himself who loosened the devil's chains and allowed this horrid creature to met out God's punishment. So that was a super interesting read for me. One of the facts that I thought was super interesting. One of the 7. So Paris, the reverend at Salem, saw his daughter and his niece doing this, and he automatically assumed it was witchcraft. So what happened was Abigail and Betty ended up saying that witches did do it. And the 3 people that they called out was Tituba, which is their slave servant / nanny, because she watched over them and helped raise them when they were children. Sarah Good and Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. So these 3 were the first witches in Salem. And then it goes on to talk about some of the other people that they accused. And actually, by the end of this, it had actually spread to 34 other surrounding villages outside of Salem. which is another crazy fact, that it just kept spreading and spreading and going out of proportion until 34 were accused, and 34 cities were saying that they had accused witches there. And between May 2nd and June 6th of 1692, 39 more people were charged with witchcraft. So, actually, if you look at the beginning of this book, you can look up a few accused witches and their order and appearance. So you have here Tituba, Sarah Good, Dorcas Good, which is Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter. Fact number 3 that I found super interesting, that they accused a 4-year-old. Sarah Osborne, Martha and Giles Corey, and so on and so forth. And it goes Reverend George Burgos, who, again, fact number 4 that I found really interesting, he actually lived in Salem for a while and then kind of got run off and they actually went to Maine to take him back when one of the girls accused him of being a wizard. So they drove out, got him, and then brought him back just to have him stand on trial. And then here you see some of the afflicted and other witch hunters. And you have Reverend Samuel Parrish, Betty Parrish, Abigail Williams, Ann Putnam Jr., and just a couple others that had a big impact in doing the accused. So another couple interesting things that I thought were pretty insane while reading this is how they examined them was through a thing called witches' marks. Now, these witches' marks are warts or bumps anywhere on their bodies that could be used as treats to feed their evil animal familiars. So that was number 5. Number 6 was that they actually believed that dogs were more likely to be animal familiars than cats were, which I thought was really interesting. And also, if you look at the beginning, this made me sad. Some of the accused were actually 3 dogs that were put to death. So that was interesting fact number 7, that they actually put dogs to death. Why? Anyways, so now I'm going to evaluate this book based on the nonfiction elements that we read in our textbook. And for accuracy, Rosalyn actually went through transcripts, letters, books, sermons, list of confiscated properties, as well as pieces of original source material from the Salem witch trials and everything related to it, which I thought was super well done. The fact that she sifted through all this information just to get the most accurate description that she could. For category, I went with interpretive nonfiction for this book because it does tell a story. It starts off and it is in a narrative point of view as well, but it's also in an expository structure as well, because it does go in chronological order. So it does start out at the beginning of these witch trials, and even goes back 50 years before to talk about how the witch trials actually kind of began and how they knew about witches. And then it goes on to the very end of it, and even goes into talking about what happened next, like what happened after the trials, what happened after everything happened with all of them. So it goes into the officials that were there, such as Chief Justice William Stratton. It goes into what happened to the accusers, as well as what happened to the innocents that were wrongly accused. So because it does have a kind of timeline effect, it would be expository structure, but it also, because of how it's written, it is very narrative as well. Again, the organization patterns are, it's a sequined type of book, so it starts at one end and ends at the end of the witch trials. The style, it has a very intriguing writing. It has a very intriguing title, I feel. It has the exclamation point, kind of grabs the reader's attention, and it kind of describes what happens, how it's a disaster, It killed close to 18 people, these Salem witch trials. It has an intriguing introduction. One of my favorite lines is, "But the most frightening thing of all was this. Anyone could be a witch, your own mother or father, your best friend, your tiny baby brother, or even your dog. And you might never know who was in league with the devil until it was too late." And then it does start off with witches, capitals, exclamation point. So it definitely grabs the reader's attention. It also uses highly descriptive language and imagery, such as the death of one of first accusers and then later's victims of Giles Corey. Now, Giles Corey's wife ended up being accused of the witch, and he actually said that he actually helped his wife become accused as well. Now, what happened was eventually he himself was accused, and instead of pleading guilty or anything, he decided to stand mute, and he wouldn't utter a single word. So they said that he would get a type of torture known as peine forte et dure, which is a prisoner would be forced to lie down on his back while more and more weight was piled on top of him until he either agreed to be questioned in court, confessed, or died. So one of the quotes here is, "Corey was stripped naked and a big board was set down on top of his chest. Then as the townfolk stared, a large number of extremely heavy rocks were piled one by one onto the board. Corey had only one thing to say. He has to have more weight added so that he could die faster. But it would take 2 long days for him to breathe his last." So it's a very descriptive book, and that's actually one of the reasons why this book is rated for middle school age. It does have some pretty graphic details on death and things like that. And so organizational tools, it does have a table of contents. This table of contents. It also has an index. So it has an index with a list of the characters that you can find in this tale, as well as some kind of words like natural world that I talked about earlier, but like afflictions, causes and stuff. And then it also has a notes section that goes into certain parts of the book and kind of adds a little bit more about those certain parts. And then lastly, it has a bibliography of all the sources that she used for this book. Now, graphics and visual features. This book is probably one of my favorite when it comes to graphics and visual features. I really love the way that she did it. She ended up drawing using a thing called ampersand scratchboard. And basically it's a clay with a type of black ink on top of it. And what she does is she scrapes the black ink away so that you get these kind of white markings on here. Here's a really good illustration that she did. And then she later went back and put in the red accents. And she did this because she wanted to keep the darker tone in the book and reflect it in this artwork, because it is a very dark book. And so that is my review on Witches, the absolutely true tale of disaster in Salem. Thank you for watching.